Hello everyone. The former cabinet secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, has been poking holes directly upon Ruto's government, sparking a major wave of public pressure upon authorities to account for the safety failures witnessed in Kenya learning institutions. While speaking in a candid interview with KTN and the Standard Group media, he lambasted the casual and reckless approach to handling national crisis, in response to the fire regulation failures witnessed in Utumishi versus Endarasha School Academy.
21 kids burned to ashes in Endarasha. You are in the media, let me ask you a question. Have you seen any report from any institution in Kenya on what happened in Endarasha?
We have not seen that report.
The Education Committee in Parliament, we have an Education Committee in the Senate, we have the institution of Parliament itself, which could actually form an all-parties inquiry into that matter. The Minister of Education, there is nothing.
According to his key assertions, Fred Matiang'i was accusing the government for sweeping the recent school fire tragedies under the carpet and blatantly ignoring them for Kenyans to forget, as if nothing ever happened. In his remarks, the president's lack of concern and the suppressive investigative reports only serves to normalize the institutionalized impunity in boarding schools, whereby the culture of bureaucratic compromise within the Ministry of Education and the unpunished bureaucratic failures are actively creating disasters for the learners.
With the number of children who died in Endarasha, our president did not go to the school. With the number of kids who died in Utumishi, our president did not step in the school. There was an investigation in Coast region that exhumed bodies that nobody knows how many there were, what was happening, whether it was cult worship or something else. Our president did not go there. Has never made a comment about it. Whatever you do, whether you're going to exhume 100 bodies or what have you, that's not a matter that our president cares about or mobilizes government to emotionally deal with. In many cases, in the US, the president is called the mourner-in-chief, the empathizer-in-chief, and so on. That is why, traditionally in Kenya, the head of state is called the father of the nation. So this casualness, you see, ends up looking like a pattern or, a very reckless way of life of not dealing seriously with the work that we are supposed to do.
According to Matiang'i, no matter how many students died in Endarasha and the recent Utumishi fire tragedy, the president himself did not find it important to visit the affected schools to investigate what exactly happened, or either did not consider to send even a single message of condolence to the bereaved families. Matiang'i, in his wisdom and prior experience as the minister, the authorities and those responsible obviously keep on compromising about everything by way of bribery, activist lawyers emerging to politicize issues, and several court orders being served left, right and center, blocking the execution of relevant policies to cover up the culture of impunity, and the next thing you see is a deadly disaster.
The question I keep asking myself every day, there must have been a principal in that school who has a structure, of boarding masters or boarding mistresses, and so on and so forth. And the act, the Education Act and the legislation, the consequential legislation on the education sector in terms of policy and the legislative ecosystem vests the responsibilities of our schools in the minister, which means you've got to be accountable. And ultimately, of course, the minister is acting on behalf of the president. That is why we should do this. So there are people in that incident who should be called to account. I don't think we should be confining our debate to which students were doing what have you.
Who are these people?
We have an inspectorate department.
Yes.
When I looked at that dormitory, I asked myself the question, were safety standards kept in this school? Who was there? If I had arrived in that school as a minister, the first thing I would have asked to see is the principal's visitors book and asked the principal, when were the inspectors there last? I would have looked for the sub-county director of education and the quality assurance people and the inspectorate and asked them when they were in the school last. And what did they see when they were there last, including the county officers? Did they see those grills? I will have asked the principal how the structure of managing the school operates, who is in charge of boarding activities. How can fire break out at 2 o'clock? And then the world starts to know that about 3 a.m. in the morning. There are fundamental questions to be answered. And you see, this evasive and reckless way in which we are handling affairs, the tragedy of it all, my brother, is that it's going to affect all of us. It's not politics, it's not who's right, who is in, who's out. It is the fact that if we don't do the right things, we create a culture of mismanagement and people just keep getting away. You see, our greatest enemy in the public sector, my brother, is one word: compromise. That's our greatest enemy. Compromise. You compromise here, compromise there, compromise there. And in most cases, when you see all these compromises, the sum total of those compromises is disaster.
In his explanation, he gave a good example of the school dormitory witnessed in Utumishi Girls' Academy, whereby the School Disaster Inspection Committee did not bother about the grilled windows of the dormitory and the lack of fire extinguishers in that housing facility. Some allegations have also emerged that some very corrupt principals are intentionally provoking fires in schools to destroy accounting records and avoid audits, while others prioritize high-profile purchases than essential structural safety standards, thus leaving dormitories dangerously congested for students to survive in case of a fire tragedy. A recent performance audit by Auditor General Nancy Gathungu revealed that the most affected institutions do not adhere to the most basic fire code regulation standards, thus imposing serious disasters to the students.
So before you start now politicizing the question and giving blankets condemnations, oh, minister, everybody should, that's how people go to things when they don't want to solve problems. If you want to solve the problem, you go into it first of all, step by step. What happened? Who was responsible? Get all the events, act. Then document the report and say, on the basis of this is what has happened. And every incident, by the way, even in basic everyday management, every incident that happens or something goes wrong, it gives you an opportunity to improve. So you would use that opportunity to call all your inspectors in one room, or even call all your, let's call it assurance people, what have you, call them to a particular place. I would even call the entire region to a meeting in that school and tell them, if any of your schools in your jurisdiction looks like this, you are headed for a disaster of this kind. So please go back and tomorrow do one more round of your schools. That's how you avoid a problem. But you see, we now dwell on politics.
However, on the question of doing away with boarding schools in Kenya, Matiang'i's response plan was a resounding good idea, although the abolition cannot be implemented as a switch-off, switch-on affair, but the plan must be done carefully with wisdom to create a smooth transition of events without causing chaos in the education sector.
Do you think it's high time we go by your word and do away with boarding schools in this country?
The answer is yes, but you see, it's not a switch-on, switch-off affair. Public policy must be implemented with a measure of care, wisdom, and pragmatism. Otherwise, you can also again cause chaos in the process. If we worked gradually on the free day secondary education program as we envisioned it when we were in government, so that you continue availing enough resources for day schools to increase the enrollment and provide quality education as they go along, making education much more affordable, you will reduce the need and the demand for boarding schools as it is. Because the challenge was the day schools are not very well funded, so they don't have enough facilities. Parents decide to move kids to places where they can probably find better facilities and so on, or keep them away. Then that way you reduce the appetite for boarding schools.
Thank you and keep on subscribing.